Hi, I'm Susan Clare, GourmetQuilter, and today I'd like to show you a fun, nice decorative way of putting some little ends over some cord, if perhaps it's on a drawstring bag, a little bit like something like up here, that I've got a nice little drawstring bag, and yes, it does have a little Japanesey feel about it. These are most likely to be a Japanese style cord end, and they're fun to do. They're like a little bit of a flower on the end of the cord, so where we might thread our cords through, we might have a knot on the end of the cord, which isn't always so attractive. This would be one way you could cover that up. There's other things you can do, of course. You can get beads and you can do other things. Today we're doing a little flower end. So I've got a little bag here that I'm in the middle of making, or nearly finished, and I've put one cord end on already, and I thought you might just like to see me making the other one. So I've got my ugly knot cord here, but we're going to make it a beautiful flower end. So what I've got here is the square that I'm using. So you start out with a square of fabric for making your little flower end, and this one here measures 3.5 inches. It varies a little bit. This is a reasonably substantial cotton fabric, so it's not going to be super pliable. If it was a softer fabric because you're making a softer bag or something like that, then you may find that you can come down a little bit, but you don't want to come down too much in size because it's a little bit fiddly, as you'll see as we go along. So if you start off with a square and you fold it over and then stitch down one side. So I'll just stitch this. I'm just using my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So nothing hard about that so far. And then it comes so I've actually already got one ready here now, so we've got two ends here. So then comes perhaps the slightly trickier part, because what we now need to do is turn that inside out but into a tube, so halfway. So I hold one end and bring it up to the other end where the seam is just as easy as anywhere, but we're trying to turn it all in with those edges together. So it does get a little bit fiddly, and this is why I'm suggesting you don't go too much smaller with your square size, because you've got to be able to do this and turn it out the right way. So it'll be a little sort of tube with the raw edges all together at one end and a fold sitting at the other end. So a nice double-sided little tube. So not too hard to do like that. That one needs to be done. And so then what we need to do is pop a little running stitch, and this is where we're sewing by hand to do some of this, because it's too fiddly to get that into the sewing machine, and it needs to be through both layers. So just with a needle and thread, I have actually got one ready, but I thought I'd just start showing you. So all I'm doing, and I've come down about 1/2 inch because it's a little bit larger than I needed for this bag. If you were making a longer one, perhaps a slightly bigger bit of cord, you might want to come up sort of nearer to the 1/4 inch, but we can come down approximately 1/2 inch. And then just do a little running stitch around, because we just are going to be gathering that up above the knot. So it's nothing too hard about this. I can probably keep going, it's only going to take a moment. And you want to end up pretty much level and fairly close to where we started. And so I have put a knot in the end of my thread. I've got double thread here because we're going to be tying this off, so you don't want it to be something that would break too easily if that was likely to happen. And leave the end with the needle on longer than the other end, because then we can leave it in so that we can do the other part of the sewing as well. So having got to this stage, so I've got an end hanging out here with a knot, an end hanging out here with a needle. I'm approximately 1/2 inch in, and I've gone actually all the way around with that gathering stitch. And then I'm going to pop that onto my cord. So we're going to put this on so that the cord is, so that we've got the folded edge up there going on first. The cord can come through so that we can see that knot. And then we're going to tie this off. This is probably the fiddliest bit to do on camera. So we want to pull that up so that it sits just above our knot. So pull it up nice and firm. I'll just lay that down. As reasonably tight as you can get it, and tie it off. Oops, I'm going to get in a tangle. It's quite wintry here at the moment and my fingers get quite cold. So I think that's tied up fairly firmly. I'm just going to pop another knot in just to be sure there, because you don't see any of this, but this will all be inside. And then I'm just going to snip off, I'll probably leave a little bit dangling, but snip off that knotted end, leave the needle on there. And so we've got that sitting above the cord now. We can just pull it against the cord if you like, it doesn't really matter too much at this stage. And then we want to bring that, like a little bell, over that knot, that folded edge. And so that, because we've pulled up that drawstring around above the knot there, that should snuggle down quite nicely over that knot. And at the moment it's sitting a little bit like a bell, so that's quite cute, but we've still got the ugly knot showing, and we don't want to see ugly knots. And so because I left the thread attached, I'm just going to run that down and just bring it out just near the fold. I'm still on that seam line, but really only as a point of knowing where I'm at, rather than that it needs to be on the seam line. And I'm just going to do a little overstitch just so that it's held nice and firm there. And then we want to just put those edges together. So you want that opposite side, so we're just bringing in the opposite side there together, and we're just going to do a couple of little stitches to hold those two edges together. And then we want to bring these two in as well. So cute, hey? Because our thread is still there with the needle. And so we want to bring those in, and so that we want to bring those through so that they're caught in the middle of those two edges as well. Hopefully you can see this, it's quite dark, this fabric. And so just do a couple of stitches and then end off. And I'll just do a little knot there, and then I'm going to pop that needle in and bring it up somewhere further away so that I can trim off the end. So you can see it's not so hard, so just trim it off close because it won't show. It'll disappear, that end. Oops. And there we can just rearrange that just a touch. We've got a nice little flower end on the end of our cord for our bag. Now how fun was that? That was really cute, and it looks really nice on the bag. It's better than a knotted cord. Some cords fray a little bit and things, but that's just a nice little decorative end. So another thought that you could do whilst you're doing that, so once you've turned it out, before you actually do the little bit of stitching, if you're finding that it's a little bit limp, perhaps not fat enough, you could pop a little bit of fibre fill of some sort in at that stage. You wouldn't want very much. You could just tuck a little bit in before you do the little stitching of the centre of the flower there. Something like I've got here. So this is a lovely little tassel, so it's exactly the same thing, but they've been filled. They're in a softer, it's a Japanese silk, I think, this one. And so it's just got a little bit of filling in there, but other than that, and it's got a little bead on the centre there too, so there's another thought that you could do something like that. But that's more like a tassel rather than on the end of a drawstring cord on this magnifier that I have. So the same process though, different fabrics, softer fabrics, and a little bit of filling and maybe a little bead if you wanted to do a bead. But how fun is that to make a nice little end on your drawstring bag? It just finishes off a bag really nicely to be able to do something like that, and it doesn't take very long. It's just a couple of squares of fabric, and there's your nice decorative bag. So that was it for today. Thank you. I'll see you again.